Buying real estate right now is like booking a patio table before the sun comes out in Vancouver. While everyone else is checking the weather forecast, you still have a choice. Once the sun comes out, there may be no tables left. The best investments, especially in real estate, are usually made near the bottom of the market, not when the recovery has already become obvious to everyone. But the main challenge is that the bottom of the market never looks obvious in real time. For many people, buying real estate right now feels like buying a convertible during rainy season. It is valuable, but the mood is not there. Many people think the first sign of a market bottom is when prices start going up. But in reality, price growth is no longer a sign of the bottom. It is already a sign of a new trend. And this is exactly what a market near the bottom often looks like. Bad news, slow sales, high inventory, cautious buyers, and sellers who are finally ready to have a conversation. So how do you know that the market has reached this stage and is starting to turn? You need to look not at emotions, but at the early signs. Sales are coming off the lows. There are fewer new listings compared with last year. Active inventory is no longer growing as aggressively. Prices are starting to stabilize, and certain segments of the market are starting to move first. In this update, I'll show you the signs and explain why the latest Lower Mainland data suggests that we may be in exactly this window, the stage where the market bottom is forming. If you're not subscribed to my channel yet, do it now. Sign number 1. Sales are coming off the winter lows. The first sign of a price bottom is not a sharp increase in prices. First, buyers simply start coming back to the market gradually, even while the market itself still looks weak. In Metro Vancouver, sales increased from just over 1,100 transactions in January to just over 2,100 transactions in May. At the same time, May sales were still significantly below the 10-year seasonal average. So the market is definitely not overheated. This is not a market comparable to a morning after 3 espressos. This is Monday morning top of the market. Slow, uncertain, but no longer dead. We're seeing a similar picture in the other parts of Lower Mainland. In the Fraser Valley, sales in May increased slightly compared with April. In Chilliwack, sales were up more than 22% compared with last year. Although they're still below the historical norm, what does this mean for buyers? This is the stage where confidence starts returning quietly before competitors come back to the market in large numbers. Many buyers are standing on the shore right now, waiting for the water to get warmer. But real estate doesn't work that way. When the water gets warmer, there is already a crowd. Sign number 2. There are fewer new listings than last year. The second sign of a bottom is that sellers stop adding new properties to the market as aggressively. In Metro Vancouver, slightly over 6,000 new listings came to market in May. That is almost 8% lower than a year ago. In the Fraser Valley, new listings also declined, both compared with April and compared with last year. In Chilliwack, the number of new listings dropped by more than 20% year over year. Before, new properties were coming to the market like November rain in Vancouver. The rain is still here. It is just no longer a downpour. This does not mean there is a shortage of homes on the market. There is still a lot of choice, but the pressure from new supply is starting to decrease. For buyers, this is an important point. Today, you still have a choice, but if demand continues to recover while fewer new properties come to the market, the best opportunities may not stay available for long. Sign number 3. Inventory is still high, but supply growth is slowing. At the bottom of the market, there are usually still a lot of active listings. That is exactly what creates the opportunity for buyers. In Metro Vancouver, there were almost 17,000 active listings in May. This is still significantly above the 10-year seasonal average. But the important change is that compared with May of last year, active listings were down by 1%. So supply is still high, but inventory is no longer growing year over year. In the Fraser Valley, the market also remains very favorable for buyers. More than 10,000 active listings and sales to active listings ratio of around 11%, which still points to a buyer's market. But it is important to understand this. A buyer's advantage is a perishable product. It exists while there is still little competition, while sellers are nervous, while inventory is still high, and while the market still does not look very confident. When the market wakes up again, that advantage starts melting very quickly. Sign number 4. Prices are still below last year, but prices are no longer clearly falling at the bottom of the market. At the bottom of the market, price headlines are usually still negative. That is exactly why many buyers keep waiting. In Metro Vancouver, the composite benchmark price in May was about 6% lower than a year ago, but it was slightly higher than in April. The month-over-month price movement can be described as generally stable. In the Fraser Valley, the picture is more cautious. Prices dipped again in May after 2 months of growth. The month-over-month price movement can be described as generally stable in the Fraser Valley. The picture is more cautious. Prices dipped again in May after 2 months of growth. In Chilliwack, the benchmark price also remains below last year's level. So the correct conclusion is not that prices are already rising everywhere. The correct conclusion is that the market is starting to stabilize, but unevenly. The bottom rarely looks like growth. More often, it looks like exhaustion from falling. And this is exactly when opportunities appear. Prices are still below last year's levels, but the market is no longer falling. This doesn't mean that everything will suddenly become more expensive tomorrow, but it does mean that waiting for the perfect moment is becoming riskier. The market turn usually becomes obvious only after the best deals are already gone. Sign number 5. The market doesn't wake up all at once. The most in-demand segments wake up first. The real estate market doesn't turn around in every segment at the same time. Usually, one segment starts moving first. In Metro Vancouver, detached home sales in May were slightly higher than last year, while apartment sales were still declining. Attached homes also showed the strongest sales to active listings ratio among the main property types. In the Fraser Valley, the most active segment was single-family homes. A large part of current demand is coming from move-up buyers. Buyers who are using more accessible prices to move into a larger home or a better segment. And this makes sense. Land is the only part of real estate that a developer cannot draw in a presentation. It either exists or it does not. You can build an apartment building, make it higher. You can change the floor plan. You can make the rendering prettier, but you cannot print more land. In the Lower Mainland, land is limited by water, mountains, and the agricultural reserve land. That is why detached homes, townhomes, duplexes, and other ground-oriented housing remain among the most in-demand segments. If you're looking at detached homes, townhomes, duplexes, or family-oriented housing, this segment may start turning earlier than condos. A separate note on the condo market. The condo market right now is like a TV series. They released a loud trailer, but the script has not been finished yet. The federal government has announced that it may buy some unsold units in new construction projects. It sounds big, but there are still no specifics. We do not know the exact number of units. We do not know what type of units they will be. We do not know whether this will be regular units or part of the luxury segment. We do not know which developers will be involved, at what prices, how quickly payment will happen, who will own these units afterwards. and how they will be transferred to end users. There was also mention of a possible rent-to-own model, meaning renting first with the option to buy after. But there are still not enough details. I will most likely record a separate video on this topic when more information becomes available. If you're interested in a separate video about the rent-to-own program, write in the comments. But for today, it is important to understand this. The condo market is not the most active segment of the market. It is not the segment that starts moving first. So I would not say that the condo market has already turned around. No, for now it is more like it is standing in the hallway, waiting to be told what to do next. Condo buyers may still have more time and more room to negotiate, but the segment that started moving first is detached and ground-oriented housing. Sign number 6, new construction is weak right now, but that creates a risk of shortage in the future. The pre-sale condo market remains weak. According to CMHC, pre-sale condo sales have dropped sharply. Unsold inventory has increased. And this creates a risk for future housing supply, especially in Vancouver and Toronto. At the same time, missing middle housing is becoming increasingly important. This includes townhomes, duplexes, and multiplexes. More affordable family-oriented housing between a condo and a detached home. Government support is also starting to improve the math for some buyers. For example, first-time buyers may qualify for a full GST rebate on eligible new homes priced up to $1 million and a partial rebate up to $1.5 million. In BC, there is also newly built home property transfer tax exemption, a full exemption up to approximately $1.1 million, and a partial exemption slightly above that level. The new construction market can be frozen quickly. Defrosting it after is hard. This is not a Christmas turkey. Projects are not being launched today. There will be nothing to buy tomorrow. This is not a forecast. This is arithmetic. What does this mean for buyers? The pre-sale condo market has not fully recovered yet, but in certain projects, interesting opportunities may appear, especially where buyer incentives, developer flexibility, and the risk of future supply limits come together. So let's summarize. Everyone says they want to buy at the bottom of the market, but in real time, the bottom never looks like an obvious opportunity. It looks like bad news, slow sales, high inventory, cautious buyers, and sellers who are finally ready to negotiate. That is exactly why most people miss it. They wait until the market starts to feel safe again. But once the market feels safe, the best opportunities are usually already gone. Buyers often say, I'll enter the market once the turn is confirmed. The problem is that the market usually confirms the turn through price. First comes the opportunity, then comes the confirmation, then comes the crowd, not the other way around, unfortunately. Today, in the Lower Mainland, we're seeing early signs of a bottom forming. Sales are still below normal. Prices are still below last year. Inventory is still high. But the most important change is that the market may no longer be getting worse. This is not a bottom. This is the stage before confidence returns. And for a smart buyer, this is often the most important window of opportunity. If the market already looks beautiful, confident, and safe, you're most likely no longer at the bottom. You're already standing in line behind the people who bought earlier. A safe market is often a market where you're already paying for someone else's courage. Someone bought when it was uncomfortable and later sells you the same property with a nicer headlines. Restored confidence and a premium for peace of mind. Right now, there is still choice, negotiation room, and sellers who are ready to listen. If you're thinking about buying, upgrading, or investing, call me today. Let's look where you can buy smart before the market becomes obvious to everyone again.